Please welcome our dear friend Tom Barrett.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about the future of this state and where we are and what the challenges we face are. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about this in terms of the people in this room. I'm assuming, of course, that many of you are active members of the Democratic Party. But if you're not active members of the Democratic Party, I assume, I think correctly, that you would consider yourselves progressives. I don't apologize in any way for trying to deal with raising the standard of living and trying to improve the living conditions for the poorest in our society. In fact, I would venture to guess that the vast majority of people who are progressives who are involved in the Democratic Party would embrace that and say, yes, that's something that we should be doing. We should be caring about the least among us. That doesn't mean we should in any way give an inch on the fights that we have historically fought and currently fight for the middle class in this state and in this country. And that, to me, is our challenge. So what's happened? Why is it that the party, who for decades was associated with the working person, with the middle class, all of a sudden is not able to win elections with that key part of the electorate? That's where we're losing people. Now, there are a number of factors that come into play. And again, Professor Falone talked about the silos. Yes, there's no question that there are silos on our side of the aisle, but there are powerful and much better organized silos on the other side of the aisle. If you look at the gun issue, for example, what I have said, and again, I'll just put it right out there, in my neck of the woods, if you're walking down a neighborhood alley in parts of Milwaukee, not all parts of Milwaukee, but certain parts of Milwaukee, and someone yells duck, what do? You duck. If you're in Vilas County and you're out in the field and someone yells duck, what do? Shoot. You shoot the duck, right? It's the same word, and you get a completely opposite response just from that same word. But that underscores sort of the sociological divide that we face as a state, where, again, I'm not going to apologize in trying to seek policies that I think are going to improve public safety in my city. But I know that those exact policies are policies that can be used against me. And that people will say, well, look, he's not like me. He's not like me because when I think of duck, all I think about is duck hunting. And so they're able to paint us in a way that makes us feel that we're somehow different than they are. When I think at our core, we're not, that we actually have a lot more in common. But it's how you get over that divide. And it really, I think, becomes in many ways an urban-rural split, but you can see how powerful the issue is and the organization that goes into that. The same goes with issues related to abortion, how organized the groups are who are opposed to it. And the other thing that we forget to factor in sometimes is the intensity factor. Because many of the issues that we support as Democrats, whether it's the environment, whether it's women's rights, whether it's clean elections, those are issues that are important to us, but they may or may not be issues that make us wake up in the middle of the night. A lot of the key messages and the key issues on the other side are those issues where I don't care about anything else except whether I can go and purchase this gun and have nobody ask any questions. And I don't care where you are on pensions, I don't care where you are in health care, because the most important thing to me, and again, trying to put myself in that person's shoes, I'm not rich, I'm never gonna be rich, I've got my family and I've got my hunting. And that's all I care about. And if you threaten either one of those, even if we don't threaten them, but if they perceive through misinformation that we're going to do it, then they don't want to have any part of us. So where do we go from here? Here we are, 2015. I came in 1984, and the Democrats controlled both houses of the legislature. We had a Democratic governor. We had 2 United States Democratic senators. We had the vast majority of the members of our congressional delegation were Democrats. And everything is flipped completely. So what has happened? Well, clearly, I think one of the things that has happened is really the decimation of the union workforce, because let's face it, That was one of the organizing tools that Democrats used throughout the state. Again, it may have been something that got you involved. And there were a lot of strong private unions. I think in the rural areas, even in those areas, they permeated them. I think the farm groups were not perceived at that time as being as Republican as some of them are perceived to be today. But we've somehow not been able to connect. And it's a danger if the Democratic Party in Wisconsin is the Milwaukee and Madison party. Let's face it, that's a danger to us. And we cannot allow that to happen. That's what, and you can see it with the current governor. He loves to run against Milwaukee and he loves to run against Madison. And to paint this picture that somehow all of you who live in Waukesha County or Jefferson County or Walworth County, that the people who embrace the democratic principles are not speaking for you. Again, I obviously vehemently disagree with that, but we have to understand that's the reality we face. So the question is, how do we do it? And again, I'm looking at you, at the audience here, and like me, as I described, for many of us, we're getting even closer to middle age. When I look through the room, you never get there, you just get closer to it. So the challenge is for us, but the challenge really is for our children and our grandchildren as well. How do we not only deliver the message, but the reality that this party cares for working people, making sure that people can have health care, can have pensions. If you look at the numbers that have come out recently with the president's health care plan, it has done exactly what it was intended to do, and that is reduce the ranks of people without health insurance in this country. And it has done a remarkable job in reducing the ranks of people without health care in this country. So for those of us who think that that's something that's good, we should be applauding it, and we should be embracing that. But that's not the message you see in the media. I bet many of you didn't know that the ranks of the uninsured had dropped significantly. Because what you get instead is that this is un-American, that somehow what the president is trying to do is un-American. And I'm thinking, what's un-American in trying to make sure that people have health care? To me, it's just my values are exactly the opposite. I want people to have health care. And as I've said it many, 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 many times, you give me a situation where a mother has a sick 2-year-old, and that 2-year-old is running a temperature of 103 or 104, I want that mother to take her baby to get health care. And the way the system is set up till now is that if she didn't have a primary care physician, she would have to take the baby to the emergency room, which is the most expensive and inefficient way to deliver health care that you can imagine. But if you don't have primary health care, if you don't have clinics, then you have to take your baby to see an emergency room physician. And what the president is trying to do is to change that. Now, I don't think it has been as successful as I like because, and again, you're going to see my bias now, and I got in trouble, a lot of trouble, with the president of a hospital chain when I looked at where the expansions and the additions and the new building are going on. And God bless you, a lot of it is going on right here, and I'm happy for you. And I've seen the same thing in the northern suburbs of Milwaukee and the southern suburbs of Milwaukee. And I said to them, I said, you know, as I drive around metropolitan Milwaukee, I get the impression that the only places people get sick are in the wealthier areas. And that's the truth, if you look at where the healthcare dollars are being spent. Now, again, I deliver that message as Milwaukee. What does it do? Does it make me attractive to people in areas outside the city? Probably not. Probably not. What am I fighting for? I'm fighting for the same health care that you want here for your children and your grandchildren. And I'm going to continue to fight for that. So somehow we have to be able to work together to say, look, we don't want to have this two-tier society. We don't want to have this separate society, because I really think, again, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, I think the people, the people in this room, you want health care for your kids and your grandkids. Of course you do. But I don't think you begrudge someone in a poorer part of the state having health care for their kids or their grandkids as well. But somehow the message has gotten across that if you're an advocate for that's something that's a bad thing that makes you different. So how can you help? I think one of the things, and I share the sentiment that there is a cycle to politics. And that, again, we've taken on the chin recently, pretty much obviously in the last few elections, that the other side inevitably is going to overreach. It's just the nature of the beast. They're going to overreach. It's going to be painful. It's going to be unfair. But that means there's an opportunity for us. And there's an opportunity to reach the people, again, in the middle. The people who don't want government giveaways, if that's what they perceive the problem to be, or they may perceive the problem to be unions, or they may perceive the problem to be big cities, or people of color, whatever it is that is causing us to lose out on votes in other parts of the state or this nation. But we have to make sure that we're ready, and that means that doing things like you're doing here today are so important that we can't fold up the tent and say, okay, we've taken it in the chin, because we all know that the fights are never end, that they continue and will continue for decades to come. So as bad as we've had it the last couple elections, I have not lost an ounce of hope. And maybe that's my nature, that I know that we just have to go back and fight and fight and fight. But that does mean we have to organize. And we have to find a better way of organizing. Again, because the professor is correct. They clearly have the economic advantage. And what you've seen in the last 3 or 4 years is they are trying to stack the deck. It started out with the legislative redistricting, cutting back on voting hours, what they're trying to do to the Supreme Court justice. Just look at it over and over and over again, each step they're taking. Look at the legislature right now, trying to limit the hours of debate. They want to literally make sure that the voices of dissent cannot be heard. And so you look at step after step after step that they have taken. It is to try to make sure that all the cards are in their deck and none are in the deck that allow the voices to be heard. That just means that our challenge is greater, but it doesn't mean, again, that we can fold up the tent. So again, I could go on and on and on for hours talking about why I think we've been treated unfairly, but I don't want us to have a pity party. I want us to organize. I want us to reach out to new constituencies. I want us to get our message of hope out there, and it has to be a positive message. There is nothing wrong in having a state where people can support their families, send their kids to college, have health care. And if you ask me, a lot of what we're seeing nationally right now, and again, this gets back to the race issue, and I see it firsthand in the city of Milwaukee with the police community relations. Yes, that's a real issue, but underlying those issues are the issues of hopelessness and despair. And we cannot, as a society, systematically deal out different segments. And I think that the other side is comfortable in doing that. So again, we have work to do, but I know that we're up to the challenge. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to really exchange ideas with you as to how we can improve this. But the sun will shine again. I guarantee the sun will shine for us again. It's just going to take a little work. So let me stop there. Again, thank you very much for having me.